Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we are going to discuss in depth the Leo Total Solar Eclipse happening on August 12th, 2026 at 1:37 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, this is a total solar eclipse lasting for 2 minutes, 18 seconds, where the sun and light of the sun will be blocked, interrupting the life force and source of light that we rely upon and readily expect. So this is an interruption of energies, and it's happening at 20 degrees of Leo in your chart. You want to identify which house you have that degree point in, as this is where there are abrupt and sudden endings during this energy experience that then leads you into new answers, revelations, and understandings. So I want to break it down a little bit here in terms of what this total solar eclipse means, especially at an energetic level and for our consciousness. It's important to note that not every solar eclipse is a total solar eclipse. So when we have the total solar eclipse, all of the light from the sun is blocked, which is quite disruptive to the natural world, throws off the rhythm of life and the organic cycles that we rely upon. And so every total solar eclipse is disruptive. And when we can be aware of this phenomenon, if you will, and of the changes that are happening, then you start to connect the dots and see what is powerfully shifting for you through those abrupt endings and profound resets that occur. Now, 2 minutes and 18 seconds of totality is not a long time. We do have total solar eclipse that are much longer than that. So this one is fairly fast. But what it does is it suspends what has been familiar, visible, known, and relied upon. Now think about how Leo energy is fixed fire, and the fixed signs all want something they can stabilize and rely upon. And so here we have an interruption to those routines, attachments, connections, and areas of life that have remained the same and have created a comfort zone. So this is going to disrupt a comfort zone. And there is a shutting down period here that is dramatic and significant. And we have to also understand how that's part of this energy. So this means you could have some sudden realizations. You might see something that you didn't realize or didn't understand. Now, when the sun is blocked for those 2 minutes and 18 seconds, there is a darkness that is experienced, seen, and felt. And so think of it as the giant spotlight in the sky is turning off. And so who are you when the external light disappears? Who are you at the core of your essence and the core of your being? When you are not visible, when your energy is not truly seen, who are you without validation, recognition, titles, roles, without your self-expression or your creativity? And so this can bring you into a more profound understanding about who you are, who you've been. And with the sun blocked, you could feel like there is a completion here that you're feeling and sensing, even if the mind doesn't quite understand what's going on yet. So a completion is going to be literally visible in the sky, especially if you are in any of the viewing areas of this eclipse. Now, this Leo total solar eclipse starts north in the Arctic, and it will travel down along the western side of Iceland. Actually, it'll also be seen from the eastern side of Greenland before reaching Iceland. Then it continues south, where it'll be visible through parts of the UK, the United Kingdom. Then it continues south and makes an eastern swoop into Spain, where the exact path of the solar eclipse moves across northern Spain, and then even parts of Portugal will be able to witness the full totality. And so the path of totality is where the energies are the most intense. They are also the areas that are highly desired by eclipse chasers and eclipse viewers, but the energy will be felt and witnessed across more land and territory simply because there are some locations where you'll be able to witness the eclipse. Even though you're not on the path of totality, you'll still see it partially. And so wherever the eclipse is traveling, whichever land masses, territories, and countries it moves across, that signifies where the energies are the most intense and where the most dramatic shifts will be occurring in this cycle. However, all of us will feel it. All of us are aware of an eclipse happening. And for you at a personal level, it's the energies where you have 20 degrees of Leo in your chart that this dramatic reset is occurring. Now, part of what happens after the sun is blocked is that part of your energy could feel like it simply goes offline. Something may lose its desire or magnetism. You could feel an emptiness or a hollowness around what you previously were creating or wanting or experiencing. And so this is where the shifts are felt and where we recognize what is no longer true for you. And so then we apply that to the Leo expressions and energies in our lives, including where the Leo energies come alive through expression in the chakras, specifically solar plexus and heart chakra. And there can be some very dramatic revelations around what you want to change in your life. Every eclipse is significant in that it spurs us forward and we have timeline changes. But this one is more intense and dramatic, not only because we have this in the fixed fire of Leo, Leo being in its home sign of the sun, and the sun being so prominent here, as it is for every solar eclipse. But we also have Mercury and Jupiter in Leo, and they are conjunct with Jupiter providing positivity, optimism, hope, expansion, a new dream, and a protective quality. Jupiter is the spiritual protector. And so it's actually conjunct Mercury, which means that whatever you are contemplating, perceiving, and deciding, there's going to be greater strength to that decision. There's going to be more of a passionate understanding around what you need to do and what you want to do. So for some people, this is going to show up as dramatic changes in the Leo expressions in their life, which directly relate to what you create and offer in the world, any leadership roles you have, and whether or not those are still fulfilling and in alignment with the responsibilities you want to be managing and committed to. This brings up your own personal self-confidence and where you desire to be more confident and courageous in your life and in areas of your life that maybe you have held back or you haven't felt ready to be seen. This also definitely relates to our overall core life force and light body, which means you could feel a deep fatigue as old energy is drained out and removed. You could need time off, like a really lovely few days at the beach to do nothing in order to allow for this energetic transition to unfold as the old is drained and removed, and then the new comes in very bright and strong. And so part of this energy is that it is fast moving, and that's how the fire signs work. And so not only do we have 4 planets in the fire sign of Leo, which is Mercury, Jupiter, Sun, and Moon, but we also have Saturn and Neptune, both retrograde retrograde in Aries. And so the fire signs want action, movement, enthusiasm, passion. And whatever is removed, drained out of you, or leaves your energy field is going to be replaced quite quickly and could come in quite rapidly. So this can also be big developments, sudden shocks and changes, things that finally present and appear that have been slow to appear. And maybe you've been working on something, you've been very diligent, committed, you've been doing your shadow work, your inner child healing work. You've been aware of your old patterns or habits that were part of a comfort zone, and you could have some very clear realizations around how that's been limiting you and how that is actually no longer in resonance with all the other shifts in your energy field. Now, for some people, they're going to feel this in their heart and in their love energies, because Leo is about what you desire, what you attract. This relates directly to love, romance, sexuality, heart-based connections. And these are areas that are also going to see some sudden changes, rapid developments, quick connections, and forward-moving, accelerated partnerships. And that's because it's like the energies click very rapidly here. And we also have the support of Venus now in Libra, which brings in these harmonious unions and also reveals to us where we seek greater balance. And you could have a recognition of what you need more in other people that you're willing to discuss and seek out. That Venus in Libra is savvy, charming, conversational, and she's able to discuss things that are important to her, that represent her values and her priorities. And she's a great listener, but she's also able to say what she needs when she has matured through being any kind of people pleaser or only accommodating what others want from her. So this is going to be a Venus in Libra where you may find yourself ready to express something, especially with the force of the Leo energy, that's exactly on your heart, something that you want. Maybe it felt vulnerable before. Maybe you weren't ready, but now there is this grand change in the collective energy field that could propel you forward to have conversations you're finally ready to have. And it might feel easy. It might feel like the words flow through. What you need to express comes out. It's less of being stuck in the mind and more about, now I just have to say this and put it out there. This could be a big part of that reset that you sense or feel as well during this total solar eclipse. Now, something to also take into account when we're dealing with a total solar eclipse that again goes dark, then we are sitting in the darkness of something within ourselves that we haven't fully owned or seen. And of course, we know this is simply part of an ongoing healing process and that it's part of the ongoing consciousness journey. But you could actually feel into parts of yourself that have not been fully developed, matured, or adequately expressed. And so we will look at the lower expressions of Leo to understand what those energies might be. And a few of them would be a coward, the cowardly lion, the coward who doesn't take the risk, who doesn't show up, who's not brave, who's learning to be brave, but instead of actually doing the thing or taking the action, hesitates, sits on the sidelines, and doesn't really move into the strength of his heart and the strength of protecting what he loves. And that's because the Leo energy is also connected to loyalty. And so when that energy is strong and mature, there's a sense of, well, I have to be brave. I have to be courageous to protect this because it is precious, because it is valuable to me, because I love it. And when that isn't fully developed, there can be not only the cowardly lion and the lack of being a protector, but there can also be the disloyalty that comes about because of a disconnect between standing strong in what you value and what you want. So there can be the energy of the coward, disloyal, lack of strength. The lower expressions of Leo are the perpetual teenager, the energy of always needing validation, recognition, always kind of needing to do something like wild or reckless for attention. It's a self-seeking energy that hasn't matured into that adult cycle of expression. And so the teenager is more reckless, boastful, prideful, to the point of being obnoxious, and people turn away because they see right through it. It's just so transparent. Part of that energy would be Peter Pan, the Peter Pan archetype of never maturing, never growing up, never practically assessing where you're at in life and the reality of your life. There is that avoidance of adulthood, that avoidance of maturity, responsibility, that can even show up through ongoing relationship patterns that reveal developmental delays, like being in that bubble of Neverland, and Peter Pan is avoiding his own maturity, avoiding his own natural growth cycle. Other lower expressions of Leo include entitlement, being highly competitive, especially from a place of ongoing comparison. There can be jealousy of another person's light, creativity, or gifts. There can be the need to dominate and be the sole power-hungry leader instead of actually leading and understanding how that affects the collective. There can also be a heavy possessiveness and ownership energy that is also attributed to any of the fixed signs. So these are just a few of the lower Leo expressions to be aware of, because as this total solar eclipse unfolds, these are the energies that will also be shut down and removed because they're no longer going to be supported in the collective energy field. They are going to be seen for what they are. They will be more transparent and obvious. There's also going to be less acceptance for lack of accountability and lack of self-ownership. Part of the cycle that we're in, especially now with the South Node in Leo and the North Node in Aquarius, is that we're no longer wanting or clapping for any of these lower expressions. And that is really going to be highlighted here over the next year and a half as that South Node continues to move through Leo into March 2028. And with Jupiter in Leo, it's going to be more dramatic, louder, and more pronounced. We're going to identify these patterns, actions, and behaviors more readily and more visibly. And so as this energy continues to unfold after the total solar eclipse is exact, we then return into the light of ourselves with a new activation in the light body, which I'm feeling as being very bright, strong, and pure. And this renewal is going to bring up new questions around what you're choosing in your life and if it truly resonates with your heart. Is this truly something I love? Is this truly something that I want to pour into? Does this give me life? And does it light up my heart, my spirit, and my body? So there could be new questions such as, well, what wants to come through from my heart? What wants to be alive in a new creative way? Where am I living with a deeper connection and even groundedness to my own creative fire? And I'm feeling like as this energy gains strength, a lot is going to be blasted off and burnt away. And this is where the life changes are going to be experienced and felt. Now, for many of you, this is going to be a beautiful activation of what you've already been shifting, changing, and evolving. And because you've been in your heart and you've been very strong and committed to your heart, your desires, and your creative life force, you're going to see some rapid manifestations show up that validate what you have been creating internally. And so your internal creation process is going to manifest with this total solar eclipse, and you're going to see things develop and present in a way that could light you up bring about wonderful, joyful developments and excite you. This certainly relates to matters of love, romance, dating, and heart-based connections, where the kings and queens arrive, which are energies and archetypes connected to that mature Leo energy. And these are the kings and queens who are equals, who are heart-based, who are loving, who are strong and assertive. I mean, this is confidence here, and that's always sexy, is the confidence to show up, to engage in conversation, to meet someone, and present yourself with a desire to get to know them. And this is something that will be happening in this new cycle. It'll be happening more effortlessly, more readily, but it also comes down to knowing your own energy and where your energy really comes to life. Because by comparison, offline and online are very different playgrounds where there can be a lot that you think you are observing or seeing online, but it can be quite Leo energy. It can be very teenager-esque performative energies where people want to present themselves in a certain way for attention, to get followers, to get likes, to be seen. And to be fair, that's a lot of what social media is. And that's why there's a lot of teenager archetypes on social media, at least until you find where the adult swim section is, and then you find the adults. But take the world of online and social media and then compare it to how different it is to be in person with people, with friends, at gatherings, at events, and how the natural chemistry is felt. Attraction is noted. You're in each other's aura. And it's just so sexy when someone has the confidence and courage to just come up and introduce themselves and have a conversation and just be person to person, human to human. And part of this new cycle is meant to bring us into those connections again, where the pendulum is swinging. And even though it could be very easy or familiar to be scrolling on your phone or glued to a screen out of habit, we are meant to be interacting with each other in person. And this energy can help get you out there into the places that are good for you, the environments and energies that are best for you. And that, of course, includes, well, how do you want to experience relationships? Like real, heart-based, consistent, emotionally safe relationships. A lot of that requires knowing your person, knowing the person, and experiencing the physical world with them. This is so wildly obvious, right? And so even though we can meet people online and we come into contact with them and we're communicating and all that, ultimately your worlds have to merge and your worlds have to collide and come together in order for it to be real, grounded, practical, and livable. I mean, I'm not going to FaceTime you while I'm on a roller coaster. Right? Like we need to be sharing experiences together and relating in person. So I feel like what's going to be occurring with this particular solar eclipse is that people are going to have the courage to do something new that is good for their heart and good for their energy, how they go about their life. And there's going to be a recognition of perhaps what's been lacking and why, and also a very fast understanding of what awaits and what's available to you when you move in new environments and in new directions. There's going to be some big heart resets here. There's going to be some changes in heart, changes in relationships. This could be, of course, internal and external. There could be a new recognition of what you want, what you love, what you need. There could also be a sense of what is not fulfilling, what is not as satisfying as you'd like it to be, and where you're being courageous in declaring the new version that you want. Now, again, you want to look at where you have 20 degrees of Leo in your chart. And this is the house in your chart where that reset is occurring, as well as where the revelations are happening in the dark. So when that house in your chart goes dark, what do you realize there? For example, what's not there in that area of your life that you want to create? What is missing? What is no longer satisfying or interesting? What is no longer a match? What needs to change? Because every total solar eclipse is a signal from the universe that big change is happening here, ready or not. And the more that your consciousness is on board and the more that your mind is aware of it, the more you'll be able to move with the changes and ideally not resist them, which is something that the fixed signs can do. And because we have these 4 planets in Leo, Mercury, Jupiter, Sun, and Moon, in that fixed fire, you could resist the changes that are needed, which would only make things more difficult and only make it harder. Because one way that the universe works is that the first time something comes through is the easiest. That's when it's the best, or that's when it's the smoothest. And so when there are hesitations, delays, second guessing, when that energy doesn't flow through the first time, it does provide, of course, opportunities to learn from it, to understand it, to look at it. And then if it circles back, or if you feel it come around again, then perhaps you're wiser, right? You've processed it, or you understand more of what it is for you. And then the second time it comes around, the third time, the fourth time, whatever, it's always a different energy signature. But when you look back, you could notice that, okay, the first time the energy was the smoothest and the clearest. And so I offer that because with this cycle, if something is coming around for the first time, if you can be brave enough to say yes the first time, it will be easier going forward. It will be less convoluted. And that's simply because you are aligning your consciousness and your life force with the unknown and with the uncertainty, which is hard for the fixed signs. But this is also the universe signaling that a bigger change is happening here. And you do want to catch it the first time. Because if there is resistance, if it's pushed away, if there's hesitation and delay, things start to get more complicated, more muddied, and sometimes just a little bit harder. And that's not to say that it still can't happen or it still won't work. It just means that the energy has shifted and it's no longer that same pure frequency. And so I feel like part of this total solar eclipse reset is that there will be a purity in the light that emerges after the eclipse. There will be a purity in where you have a strong sense of, yes, I'm going to go for it. I want this. I'm going to do the thing. And that is meant to be something that we trust and we work with as part of our ability to trust the flow of life that moves through us. And I want to acknowledge that on a realistic, practical level, there will be questions. You'll have questions. You'll have doubts. You'll have things that come up that you don't know the answer to. But that's part of being brave, is to do it anyways. It's not to be the cowardly lion who thinks you have to have it all known and figured out, because that's not how we live life. That's never how we live life. In fact, if you're overly mental, if you're thinking about things too much, you could be missing out on the highest path that you're meant to be on. If you are thinking that you have to know, or you want to know, or you need to be in control, that just takes you down a different timeline that won't be as pure and seamless. But of course, you have free will and you have your sovereignty, and you can do whatever you want. And you can go do donuts in the parking lot and practice cartwheels and play around and waste time. So there's something here about how much are you really showing up for your life? How much are you showing up for you to live life more boldly and more courageously? Because you might have thought you were doing so, and maybe you realize you weren't, or there's some areas of life you'd like to be better at that, which of course is very human. We all have things we want to do better, and we don't all have it figured out. We don't know all the answers. We're not meant to know all the answers. But when you move with the fire sign energy, you will get the answers, and you will see where something is going and what is coming about because of the action you're taking. And so there will be changes. There will be changes in your life, changes in your relationships or circumstances, changes in where you were prioritizing certain goals and experiences. There will be changes. That's how every solar eclipse unfolds. Now, what you can do is reference back to the last time we had a Leo total solar eclipse in the same area of your chart. And keep in mind, I'm being very specific here by referencing the 20 degrees of Leo. So 20 degrees of Leo last had an eclipse back in August 2018. That eclipse was actually at 19 degrees of Leo. So look back, 2018, even into 2019, this area of your life had some type of dramatic change. And I know it can take a minute to figure it out and think it through, but you would look at it through this lens of Leo themes that I've been discussing. Now, important to note that we did have another big deal Leo eclipse back in August 2017. That was the Great American Eclipse. Who remembers that? I totally remember that because I witnessed it as the path of totality moved through the US. So this occurred at 29 degrees of Leo in your chart. That was in 2017. And that was a really big deal because it actually started and kicked off a lot of big heart-opening energies for people that led them into the twin flame journey. I heard that groan. I saw you roll your eyes. The twin flame energy was really big in 2017. Then it led people into understanding more of what they truly love, desire, and want in their lives that they want to then invest in and make more concrete. It also brought about some significant endings in love relationships, love patterns, and attachments that were heart-based. So that was the Great American Eclipse in August 2017 that started in Oregon. It made landfall near Lincoln City, Oregon. It passed over 14 states in the US, and then it exited near Charleston, South Carolina. So astrologically, that was at 29 degrees of Leo in your chart, which is a different degree point than this eclipse, right? So this eclipse is actually near the same degree points of that August 2018 eclipse, although they're all in Leo, they're both in Leo. And so you'll find that there are some big themes that were prominent here in 2017, 2018, and 2019 around Leo energies and expressions. Now I have for you on YouTube more specifics about this chart. That is the video where I go through the Leo solar eclipse energies, discussing even more of the aspects and energies that are in play. Please check that out so you can see more of the layers that are involved here. Also in that video, I have a lot more uplifting, positive messages to share with you because this is the first time we've had an eclipse that really supports relationships, love, romance, and connections that are heart-based. So just know that if that is a part of your life, a part of your manifestations and your reality, all of that can be up-leveled with this eclipse. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to happen on the day, exactly on August 12th, but rather it means that energy is coming through and it will lead us through the second half of this year and into 2027. So every eclipse cycle lasts for a minimum of 6 months, but this particular cycle is actually longer. And that's because this degree point, 20 degrees of Leo, is going to be powerfully activated by both Mars and Jupiter in 2027. Mars returns to 20 degrees of Leo and stations direct at this degree point in April of next year, April 2027. And then we're also going to see Jupiter move across this degree point a few more times, finally amplifying these energies in early June 2027. So this particular eclipse cycle lasts into June 2027, extending the energies, continuing to stir them up and amplify them. And we will keep discussing that as we move ahead here and as we eventually move into 2027. But important to note that this is a longer eclipse energy cycle. So I hope this has provided you with some helpful things to look at, consider, and understand in your own life, and that it also gives you some healthy, intentional approaches to take to work with this energy change in the highest possible way. So be sure to check out that video on YouTube where I go through this chart. Otherwise, I'll be back for my next Wednesday podcast on the eclipse day on Wednesday, August 12th, and I will connect with you then. So wishing you a beautiful journey here through August, and I'll see you back here soon.